So welcome, everyone. Welcome to this new consciousness transformed, and this is not. Yeah, there's more coming. I'm exactly starting on time. I mean, it's exactly starting on time. So welcome. Great that you're here, and anyone who wants to come in is welcome. Yeah, there's more. So welcome. Still letting everyone in if necessary. Wonderful. And Consciousness Transformed is a tape group. We continue today with meditation from the book Consciousness Transformed. We'll start with that soon because it's so lovely to hear this and to contemplate the sentences that are being shared. Now today the whole idea is spiritual discernment. And discernment is an interesting word, of course, especially when it's related to spiritual discernment. And that sounds like you're going to study something or you're going to do something. But that's interesting. So I'm not going to give you the whole definition of it. No, this would be an episode in which you discover what it actually means. And it doesn't necessarily need words at all. So it's like an experience, and this is why I stop. You'll see more about it. Now I got some expressions of Joel in the talk that we're going to listen to. And so that will be after the meditation that I use as an introduction to the audio that we're going to listen to. And especially the very first paragraph is like, I'm so happy to hear this. And so that's another teaser. You will hear that right after the meditation. But it's great because it puts everything in place. And so it's like, yeah, now we can breathe. The whole idea of, because the tapes we're listening to are the tapes between two worlds, the whole idea of two worlds is dissolved right there in the first paragraph of the first couple of sentences of today's talk. To know Him aright is life eternal. Be still and know that I am God. Think, if I am God, this is already closer than breathing. Its nature is omniscience, the all-knowing. It must already know your needs. Its nature is omnipresence, so you need go nowhere to contact. Because it is omnipotent, there's no power to oppose its will. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Take no thought for your life. Acknowledge Him in all thy ways. My peace I give unto you. Thy grace is my sufficiency. To know God aright is actually letting all this affect you. And the spiritual discernment in that sense is letting God just totally affect you. Allow God to do it all, to overwhelm you with love, to bring in you a presence, say memory presence, and presence that is happening right now, that has no end, that has no limit, that is everywhere, that knows everything. So to know God aright is in fact entering into that sphere but it isn't a sphere. It is the only thing that's real. So spiritual discernment is in that sense a word, so it doesn't cover it, but we use it. And it's like, it starts with the idea, let God affect you completely. Put up your sword, drop your defenses, connect fully with the innocence and beauty that is you. Like literally, don't let the world tell you what you are. Don't let anyone tell you who you are. No, let God tell you who you are. He created you. He can tell you. He can tell you in a way that is what am I supposed to say now? It's like, this is when we meet, and when you hear a song like we just heard, to stand before as we do, to stand before God as we do, is in fact to be one, realizing you're one with God. So there's no standing before anything. It's like you stand in God because God is in you. God stands in you. And that's a complete and total experience. So it doesn't mean anything when I try to describe it in words. But I think you got a gist now. So that's really lovely. Now from this place we start. Isn't that delicious? And basically every word is said and everything is already done. It's like, yeah, pretty much with the open hands, with empty hands, we come here. What is there to say? What is there to say? Now here in I'll let someone in. Now here in the tape that we're going to listen to, you can dissect it, you can analyze it and score it up words like, did Joel say the right thing at the right time, or what's going on? Like, I don't really want to do that because it doesn't make sense at all. The thing is, where is he speaking from? Where is he speaking from? Is he expressing himself perfectly? Oh yeah, in his own Joelness? Yeah, absolutely. But where is it coming from, what he's sharing? That's the only thing that matters. Does it come from Joel's stories about himself? No. It has nothing to do with Joel as such. No, Joel is just expressing himself as the way that he is, and he can share it in that way, exactly that way, and it's perfect. Look what happens. Like how many are listening to him? So that is exactly right. Just like you are exactly right. So in teaching this, in demonstrating this, in accepting this for yourself, you come to an expression that has nothing to do with anything. It's just your individual expression of what comes through you in that sense, like what comes through you to extend. It is not about right or wrong. It's not about saying the right words in the right time, using the right vernacular or whatever. It's like, no, this expression expresses itself. And that has nothing to do with the words. That has nothing to do with understanding or, yeah. So this is what I want to convey today. It's like the spiritual discernment is basically tapping into the frequency that Joel is teaching from, which is a frequency of now. The frequency of now is literally happening at this moment. It didn't happen in 1964. It didn't happen in whenever. No, it is. You can tap into it right now. That is the great thing. That's what makes this alive, and yeah, that's everything. You tapping into the frequency of now, where Joel is teaching from, brings you in connection with the frequency of now. I use this word just because I love it. It tells you so much more than the words. So it's like behind all these words that are being used, there's this frequency. You can listen to it, you can receive it, you can listen with your whole being to it, and that's so lovely. So I made some sheets. Like one of them was the first paragraph of the talk. Now let's take a look at that. So it's not like the purpose is not to dissect it or to analyze it, but the purpose is to release any kind of concern so it can be discerned, so you can freely let it affect you. Now the only request then is to do that, to allow it to affect you. Okay, spiritual discernment. We speak of two worlds. And the Master said, my kingdom is not of this world, confirming the idea of two worlds, and yet the truth is that there is only one world. Here is a paradox. God made all that was made. Anything that God did not make was not made. Therefore, since God is spirit, the only world is a spiritual world. And the only man is spiritual man. Now this is of course like a deep message. We speak of two worlds and the Master said, my kingdom is not of this world. Like one of the worlds is real. The Master said, I'm not from this world. So the world that you think is your world is not the real world. And there you go. Because you think it is. So you're not immediately convinced that it isn't. But here Joel says, God made all that was made. Anything that God did not make was not made. Therefore, since God is spirit, the only world is a spiritual world. And the only man is a spiritual man. Now you can say, like, why is there so much emphasis on these words? Worlds. And why two worlds? Like, why is there so much emphasis on two worlds? Joel makes 10 tapes with it, with the same title, in fact, Between Two Worlds. Like, what can be between two worlds? Like, that is an impossibility. I said this before. It's like, that's an impossibility. You're either in one world or you're in the other. But like the one world that you find yourself in with your ideas about yourself is an illusory world. It's a world of mesmerism. It's a world of self-concepts, ideas about things, ideas about yourself. And the part that is a little less convenient is that what you think you are determines where you find yourself. So what you think you are determines where you find yourself. You think this world is real? Well, there you have it. Joel says this in another part of the talk. He uses this, and he uses this sentence, like, the humans think with one mind. Now if you hear that, you say, like, one mind? Humans think with one mind? Like, no, humans don't think with one mind. But what Joel means is this. Humans think from within the, say, the frame of reference of a human being, whether that's good or bad, like dualistic thinking. And that's the whole frame of reference of a human being, thinking in differences, thinking in comparison, thinking in fact, in duality. So, and everyone does that in its own way. It seems like that. Now here's the thing, like, one mind would be, I would love that everyone is thinking with one mind, recognizing that we're all one, that we're whole and perfect and at home in heaven. Absolutely, I go for that. That is our reality, by the way. Like, that is our reality. Now here, so Joel says one frame of reference, you could say, translate it into. It's like one frame of reference. A universal mind, he calls it too. That's also like, yeah, that's the universal ideas that we share with one another in the illusion of who we think we are. Sickness, pain, death, limitation, sadness, you name it, you know all this. It's like, but that's the frame of reference of a human being, thinking that you have private thoughts, thinking that you're better off than your neighbor, thinking that you're healthier than your neighbor, or it's like it's all based on comparison and all these things. Now that is not thinking with one mind, of course. Like thinking with one mind would include everything in God. Then we can easily share with one another because there is only one of us and we are aware of that. That's not what a human being thinks. So that was a bit of a difficult use of words I wanted to bring in just for the clarity, not to criticize Joel. So that's what I'm saying. It's like the whole tape, listen to it as a frequency, listen to it as something is given that is not from here, that has nothing to do with this world. But you receive that. You can listen to it. That's why you're attracted to come here. Like there's something there for you, only for you to receive. How do I bring God to my consciousness? And of course, one answer is meditation. The ability to meditate is the ability to open consciousness. But then when the consciousness is open, something can happen. This is of course what Joel means too with the question, how do I bring God to my consciousness? Like, God doesn't have to be brought. He knows his way to my consciousness. There's only one who has to open the way. And if you take your index finger and point at the tip of your nose, you know who that is who needs to open the door. Like, the ability to meditate is the ability to open consciousness. Yeah, right. And then the inflow of spirit is immediate, like to the inflow of spirit. To the inflow of spirit. Spirit is ready to go. Now you need to open your consciousness. That's the difference. And that which helps us along the way is living with this truth that has been revealed to us of the nature of what the world calls the material world, which we know isn't a material world at all. And that's not such an easy sentence to digest in this one sentence. The ability to meditate is the ability to open consciousness to the inflow of spirit. Absolutely. That which helps us along the way is living with this truth. And that's not very precisely formulated. It's like living with this truth that has been revealed to us of the nature of what the world calls the material world, which we know isn't a material world at all. So you have to look beyond the material world in order to come to living with truth instead of the material world. So that's a bit confusing. So let's see what Joel has. Remember, God made all that was made. There's no need ever to change this statement in the Bible. And all that God made is good. The mystery is not how did the material world got here, but rather this discovery that it never did. Okay. Two worlds. The real world of God's creating and God expressed as individual being, your being and mine, friend and foe, and the second world, which isn't a world, but is material sense, which forms its own illusory concepts of a world, and then makes us act like squirrels in a cage. The real world of God's creating, and God expressed as individual being. And the second world, which isn't a world, but you see it as a world. This is great too. Actually, material sense imprisons us in our own mind, whereas spiritual perception enables us to open consciousness to see through God's wisdom, with God's wisdom, really as God's wisdom. Material sense builds a structural universe where there is no structural universe. The ability to move from the material sense world into the world of spiritual discernment is proportionate to your ability to close your eyes to the appearance and wait for that inner intuition, that voice of God, to reveal to you the truth of what you are beholding. It is as simple as that, and it is as difficult as that. So the ability to move from the material world into the spiritual world is proportionate to your ability to close your eyes to the appearance and wait for that inner intuition. Now this is a peculiar expression that I really love to say something about, because now it looks like you can move from the material world to God's world. And this is the part where it's not going to work. So it's like Joel says, you have to close your eyes to the world that you see. And that's a great idea. But if you still make it real or still value it, you won't come in touch with God. It's like literally, no, you have to release the idea of this world. You have to release the concerns about this world. You have to release you valuing this world. Otherwise, you see it as a reality. One thing taken here as real places you right here. One judgment that you make, one idea that you hold about yourself that you think needs to change about this world, brings you right in the middle of your material world, and you suffer the consequences of it. So in order to be free of that, to literally release every idea that you hold about this world, opens your consciousness, defiles your altar, ready to receive God, and God is immediately there. Spirit is right here. So in our experience, we call that then a reflection or a glimpse of reality that you receive. Now that's important to know. There's no way of having one foot on earth, so to speak, one value in this material state and thinking you can reach God. Yeah, I know that Jill teaches that all the time, that you cannot do that. It's like, it would be the same as praying for something material in this world, or praying for health or wealth or the right companionship, as Jill says many, many times. That's not going to do anything. Why not? Because you place yourself in a place that isn't real. And now you expect God to come into that to make it better. It's not going to happen. We tried it for 2,000 years at least, and we failed continuously. So the next step is to release every thought you hold about this world. Open your consciousness by withdrawing every investment in this world. Now I'm ready to be launched into reality. But only then. Like there's no in between. There's not a little bit of going to God. No, of course not. Like, no, this altar needs to be clean. If you still have your stuff on it, your concerns and your fears and your this and your that, then it's not going to work, so to speak, because literally there's no openness. It is still filled with your ideas. These need to go first. Then God is right here. He didn't go anywhere. He knows the way to you. You don't have to find the way to God. God knows the way to you. It is just that you have to get your ideas out of the way. And the way I say it is simple. And it's like, well, the more you attach to this world or to your ideas about yourself, the more difficult it will be. Sure. But why would you want to hold on to it in the first place if this world isn't real? If this, what you have assumed as real, has no reality at all and is actually already over and gone. Now we're teaching the infinite way. This is in fact what Joe tries to express in this talk. And he does this in his very own way. So this is what I mean. It's like despite of the words he used, despite if he's like literally correct or not, that doesn't matter. In the end, it is only the frequency of now, of God, of the love of God, that shines right through that. Just like the love of God is shining right through every idea that you hold about this world, right beyond that, right beyond the sounds, right beyond the sights that you see, is where you can literally see the real world.
We are continuing the subject of between two worlds. From last Sunday. And at the start, let me caution you to remember that you cannot be confused by the message, but you may be confused by words, language, semantics. We speak of two worlds. And the Master says, my kingdom is not of this world, confirming the idea of two worlds. And yet, the truth is that there is only one world. God made all that was made. Anything that God did not make was not made. Therefore, since God is spirit, the only world is a spiritual world, and the only man is spiritual man. Then, what about my kingdom is not of this world, or the two worlds of the infinite way? And here is where you must remember at all times that there is but one world, and it is spiritual. But that we entertain a materialistic concept of that spiritual world, and that world of concepts constitutes the second world. It isn't really a world any more than the world of the insane is a second world. It is merely a world within their mind, an imaginary world that they have conceived, has no external existence. And so, this materialistic concept of a world has no externalized existence, and the proof of it is that as we are enabled through the development of spiritual discernment, the spiritual faculties, to see the world as it is, that materialistic concept evaporates, and in its place is the world of harmony. To illustrate this, the world of diseased people is a very real world to material sense. But you will notice that when the sick are brought for spiritual healing, that the entire world of the sick changes. And not only that the sickness evaporates, but actually those who have been sick find themselves with an entirely different concept of life. Therefore, while there is but one spiritual universe, the kingdom of God, which is the same on earth as it is in heaven, yet we as humans cannot behold heaven on earth. Until we have developed our spiritual faculties. You remember the Master says, judge not after appearances, judge righteous judgment. And the meaning of this is, as long as you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell with your 5 physical senses, you are judging after appearances. The 5 physical senses cannot bear witness to truth. We see materially, we hear materially, we taste, touch, and smell materially. Now, if you are to behold heaven on earth, you must develop the spiritual faculty of discernment. And here you have an entirely new faculty, an entirely different one from any of the human faculties. And by this faculty, you can discern the world of God's creating. Let us take the realm of sin. The woman taken in adultery, the thief on the cross. And if you are judging by human standards, and if you are judging through seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling, it is inevitable that you say, yes, this is a woman taken in adultery, yes, this is a thief who has been caught. If you have the Master's faculty of spiritual discernment, you look at both of these and declare, neither do I condemn thee. Not be thou punished, but thy sins be forgiven thee. In other words, I find no evil in you whatsoever. All spiritual healing work is based on the power of spiritual discernment. Be assured, spiritual healing has no relationship to praying to God to heal anyone or reform anyone or forgive anyone. This form of prayer, even for the noble purpose of healing, is as archaic as the ancient of days. Spiritual healing has no relationship to praying to God to free anyone or to forgive anyone or heal anyone. Spiritual healing has to do with the faculty of spiritual discernment, whereby an individual who has attained some measure of spiritual discernment is enabled to see and to declare, "Thou art my beloved child, in whom I am well pleased." No iniquity has touched thy household, soul, mind, or body. Remember, the eyes contradict this, the ears, the nose, the taste, the touch, all of this contradicts spiritual sense. And so you can understand a person who reviewed parenthesis in eternity and said, "It's very well if you can believe that spiritual nonsense." And surely you must be able to see how right that reviewer is when you understand that they were seeing, reading with the eyes, hearing with the ears, and how foolish it must have seemed to be told that I and the Father are one, and that all that the Father hath is mine, and that no weapon that is formed against me shall prosper. Think how ridiculous this is to a person who is witnessing all of the weapons that have been formed against man and how beautifully they are operating. You see, when you read the 91st Psalm, you are very apt to read all of those passages about no evil shall come nigh my dwelling place and so forth and so on, and at the end of it be very puzzled and say how ridiculous. All these evils have come nigh my dwelling place and my neighbors and my families and my friends. It is only when you catch a glimpse of that first sentence, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High." In other words, he that has risen to the place of dwelling in the higher consciousness is living in an entirely different world. And there, the weapons that are formed cannot prosper. And the evils that float around in the air cannot come nigh thy dwelling place. But this applies only to those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High, or as the Master teaches in the 15th chapter of John, he that abides in the Word, he that lets me, the Christ, abide in him. In this human world, there is just one mind. And everyone is attuned to that one mind, and therefore everyone receives the impressions, impulses of both good and evil. Probably the purest humans that have ever lived have at some time or other been tempted with carnal thoughts. Probably the most honest of men have in their business or professional careers at some time or other been tempted to lie, cheat. The reason is, of course, that whatever is common to that one universal human mind is common to all of us. Therefore, we are not only tempted with what the world calls sin, we are tempted with disease, with fear, with lack, because this universal human mind is made up of abundance and lack, of health and disease, of life and death, of wealth and poverty, and all of the gradations in between. Now, until we learn better, these are the temptations that come to us, and each handles these temptations in a different way. Some of these temptations may make no impression upon you whatsoever and may affect me. Some may not affect me at all and may affect some of you. But at some time or other, be assured that in our humanhood we are tempted by good and by evil. We are tempted to experience good in ways that later turn out to be not so good. This is, of course, the world that the Master referred to as this world. It is a mental world because you cannot carry out anything physically without first accepting it in mind. Your body cannot even be sick without your first accepting sickness in mind. The body certainly could not sin, couldn't even steal, defraud, unless that were first accepted in mind. Now we have my kingdom, my world. And here you have what is called in the Bible that mind that was in Christ Jesus, that which we call the infinite or divine consciousness, which is our goal in this message of the infinite way. This, remember always, is our goal. We are not seeking health or wealth or happiness or companionship or peace on earth. We are seeking only the Father's house, the divine consciousness, the Spirit of God, that mind that was in Christ Jesus. And the reason is that once you have made contact with it, once you have access to the divine consciousness, you find that you are more and more becoming separated from the mind of man. You are experiencing less of the mind of man and more of the mind of God. The ultimate is, of course, when we attain full conscious union with God, with divine consciousness. So far, Paul tells us, and it has been our experience, that we cannot claim to have fully attained to that yet. Therefore, we are still subject to some of the world's temptations. It may be the temptation of illness. It seldom is a temptation of a major sin. It may be the temptation of loneliness or lonesomeness. But in some measure, now and perhaps for a while to come, we must remember that we have not yet fully attained. If by chance any one of you has fully attained, you will know it, and you will know that you are the exception to whom I am not speaking. In our studies, you must give recognition to the fact that there is this material sense of existence which is responsible for any of the ills or discords that come our way. In other words, do not look for a devil to blame it on. There isn't any. Do not look for neighbors to blame it on, or enemies, or relatives, because even though the evil may appear in the form of one or more individuals, you never will meet it spiritually. You never will meet the discords and inharmonies of life spiritually while you are accepting appearances and believing that it is a person, a group, a nation, an ideology, or the weather or the climate, or infection or contagion that is responsible for your ills. The ills are due only to one thing: a material sense of existence. And to the extent that you and I are still troubled with problems, be assured of this: it is that some measure of material sense still persists. We still entertain a material sense of body, or we still entertain a material sense of weather, or climate, or germs. We may even entertain a material sense of wind and waves, volcanoes and earthquakes. Now remember, these are not material, for God created all that was made, and God is spirit. But as we persist in entertaining a material sense of these, they react materially upon us. In proportion as a temptation comes to you, and you can impersonalize it by recognizing it as material sense, you very quickly free yourself of it, because neither you nor I created material sense. Not even the communists did that. It existed before communism was known. It existed before the materialism of Caesar was known. Material sense has been with us from the beginning of a materialistic world, because there is no materialistic world. There is only a materialistic sense that appears to us as a world. If you can watch as a temptation touches your consciousness, a temptation in your own experience or your neighbors or your friends or our enemies, if you can be alert and instead of trying to protect yourself from it or resent it or pray to overcome it, if you can be quick enough to realize, now this is material sense, but creation itself is spiritual. This is material sense, but man is spiritual. For man was created in the image and likeness of God. Man has the qualities of God and the quantities of God. Son, all that I have is thine, both in quality and quantity. Therefore, when we see other than that, we are seeing material sense. Even when we see structural man, physical man, we are really seeing material sense. Why? There is no such thing as a structural man. Man is that selfhood that is looking through your eyes. Man is completely invisible to eyesight. No one has ever seen man with their eyes. And therefore, the moment we think in terms of sinful man, diseased man, deformed man, we are merely permitting material sense to govern our thoughts, our vision. The moment we can look at the crippled man and say, what did hinder you pick up your bed and walk? It means that we are really looking into his eyes and seeing man behind the eyes. The spirit, which is man, the life, which is man, the soul, the intelligence, which is man, the love, which is man, and all of these incorporeal. Every spiritual healing that has ever taken place bears witness to the fact that someone was sufficiently spiritually illumined not to accept appearances. Material sense has to do with quantities and qualities. But spiritual discernment has no awareness of quantities, not even large quantities. No qualities, even good qualities. Because spiritual discernment knows only the allness of spirit. Spirit which is indivisible. Son, all that I have is thine. And this means all of the intelligence, all of the life, all of the love, all of the spirit, all of the truth, all of the peace, all of the joy. And when we open our consciousness to this, we begin to discover that you really do not divide up these qualities among millions of people, but each may know them in their fullness. This calls for alertness. Only this very morning, I received a letter from a student saying that they had had an awakening last week because for a long time they have been waking up each morning filled with gratitude for their blessings and then thinking of their blessings in terms of health and supply and husband and home. Instead of realizing that gratitude is for the grace of God, for the Spirit of God, for the omnipresence of God, for the love of God. All these other things that she had been grateful for were merely added things which couldn't have been there but for the grace of God and the love of God. We may say thank you to each other for the gifts of the things of this world that we give to each other, but we cannot thank God for them. For God has no awareness of whether your dresses are made in Paris or New York, or whether your diamonds are from Tiffany or the 5 and 10. But gratitude can fill us soul, mind, and body when we stop to think of the love of God that envelops us, the grace of God that feeds and clothes and houses us, the grace of God that supplies us even with 12 baskets full more than we need. So you see that material sense would even make us grateful for material limitation. And this sometimes gives rise to strange situations, like one person tearful with gratitude for $100 and another person bemoaning their fate over $1,000. And then you see how foolish it is to be grateful for amounts or to think in terms of amounts. Spiritual discernment sees God as the consciousness of individual being, the love, the life, the truth, the spirit that indwells individual you and me.
great that you're here and that you, enjoy this in a deep sense. So thank you so much for your presence, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you before you know it. Thank you.